What's up everyone with a brand new video. This video we're gonna start learning TypeScript, and you need to know nothing about TypeScript to start. I'm gonna go over through everything you need to know. You also need to know nothing about coding. If you know something, this is great, but if you don't know anything, that's fine because I'll go over through everything. For your information, today I'm gonna mainly go over through variables. I'm gonna explain what variables are and how to use them and why they're important in coding. So to get into all of this fun stuff, we first need to create a script. So we're gonna navigate to the scripts menu, and we're gonna click the plus button which says create new script, and then we need to give it a name. In this case, I'm just gonna call it learn TypeScript, and then press enter, and then it's gonna pop up over here. And to open and edit this file, we're gonna click on this three dots, and then we're gonna open it in an external editor. In my case, I'm using Visual Studio for the external editor. It's a great coding editor. I recommend it. I highly recommend it. So go install it, and then we'll continue from there. Okay. So this is what you're greeted with when you first open a file. Before we start editing some code, I just want to go over where you can find the files you created. So if you go and click the Explorer tab, you can see the file that we've created. Don't worry about the other files. Those are additional files that are used to run the game, but you don't need to change them and you don't need to worry about them. And when you create any additional files in the future, you're gonna find them over here too. So to navigate between them, you can just click on them. In our case, we only have one, the one we created, which is called learn TypeScript, and you can call them whatever you want. So let's close this tab and let's continue over here. So before we start, I just want to define some basic stuff. They're not basic, but they're important. We're not gonna actually use them, but I just want you to understand what they mean. So we're gonna start with a class. A class is basically like a blueprint. For example, I want you to imagine you wanna build a house. But in order to build a house, you need to know what it looks like, what are the things inside it, what are the various functionality. So basically, you can compare a house to a house. You can compare a class to a house blueprint, for example. Once you created this house blueprint, now you can build unlimited houses with it. It works the same with class. I'm telling you that because in a bit we're gonna use some code that requires you to use a specific keyword. I'm gonna go over that more in detail. But the idea is when you create a class, you're actually creating it in a way where you can duplicate it and use it multiple times. And with this out of the way, let's start with what is a method. A method is basically a list of code that you give it a name, and whenever you want this list of code to run, instead of writing the list of code over and over again, you just write it one time and you give it a name, and then whenever you want this code to run, you just call the name. Okay, this is basically a function. So in this case, start is a function. It's a pre-provided function. It's a special function that we're given. Whenever the game starts automatically run. You don't need to call it. I'll show you an example of a method. Oh, also, if you find me using methods and functions interchangeably, the correct name to use is a method inside of classes. When they go outside of classes, they become functions. Don't worry about the functions for now, just let's continue. So I'm just gonna show you how it works. So first, for a method, you need to give it a name. In this case, start is the name of the method. Over here, those are, and then you open curly, and then you open parentheses. In the parentheses, you give it any inputs, and then finally, in the curly braces, this is called the body of the method. Let's create a new one just to illustrate how it works. So we give it a name. It literally can be any name you want. Let's call it learn. Just call it learn, for example. Doesn't need to be anything specific. And then you can open two parentheses, and then you open two curly braces, and you press enter. And this is basically how you write a method. It's nothing more complicated than that. It's as simple as this. Now one thing I want to add, over here between the parentheses, you give it inputs. In coding, we also call inputs parameters. We mainly call them parameters. So it's better that you know that they're called parameters. So in case if I say parameters, you know what I'm speaking of. It's anything you pass over here. We're gonna go more over that and how to use them when we actually require this usage. It's probably gonna be in future videos in this playlist. So one thing before we delete that, I want to show you how you call this. So to call this, like to actually call it, and so in the body you write the actual code. So over here you'd have like code, and then when you call it, the code runs. But to be able to call it, you write its name. So in this case it's called learn. And remember what I said about classes? I told you classes, they're like a blueprint. So to refer to this instance of a class, you need to use the keyword this. Right now, since you're just learning TypeScript, like you don't need to understand it. For now, just write what I have. And with the more you write, you're gonna grasp a better concept of how it works and what it basically means. But for now, just write this and then dot to refer things inside of the current class you are in, and then learn is the name of the method we've defined, and then you open two parentheses and then you end it with the semicolon. Okay, and this is how we call a method. Now in the start method, it automatically gets run for us. This is a special method, as I said, and you don't need to call it. It automatically gets run when the game starts. So let's delete what we have wrote over here, and then let's delete this other method that we've created. And now that you know like some part of the code, we're just gonna mainly in this video we're just gonna mainly stick with the start method. And as I said, the start method automatically runs, so you don't need to worry about calling it. So any code that we want to run when the game starts, we're gonna write it over here between these two curly braces. Then I want to introduce you to a useful method that we have access to. This method allows us to print messages to the console. So over here is the console. The console is very useful because it allows you to debug stuff by printing out stuff over here that you can see. So when you run a piece of code, for example, if you console something, you can see if the code goes through to the console point or not. We're gonna go more into detail that in the future, but for now, just know that it's very useful and we can debug stuff over here, and I'll go over through how you debug stuff over here. Let's clear it for now and let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. And how you print stuff to the console, you write console and then you write dot log and then you open two parentheses, and then anything you write over here is gonna be printed out to this console. Okay, before we continue, semicolons, they're optional, but I really recommend them that you add them at the end of each statement you write. Okay, and now that we have this, let's actually print something to the console. Okay, so let's open two quotes, and then we can write anything over here. So we're gonna write hello world, the iconic hello world, and then if we save this with Ctrl S, you can see that the white dot goes away. So if you don't have something saved, you can see there's a white dot, and then when we Ctrl S or save, you can see that it got saved. And then if we put this to the side, and actually to run the script needs to be attached to an object. So in our case, we have this floor. We're gonna click on it, we're gonna go to the right side, we're gonna scroll down, and under the scripts side over here, we're gonna open this menu, and as you see, we only have one script, and then we're gonna click on the script that we've made. So what we've did right now is we've attached this script that we just wrote to this object over here. If you want any script to run, it needs to be attached to an object. So now that we have it attached, we can click the button over here to start the game. And as you see, we print hello world over here. So this is a great function to start learning with, and you can like test and play with it. You can like write anything you want over here. You can also write just numbers, and if you save it and you pause the word and you restart it again, you should okay, here, wait for it to update. And as you see, it printed out the 3 that we wrote. Okay, so right now let's start going through the variables. And what are variables? Variables are basically containers that store information. There are multiple kinds of variables. We have strings, like we have text. We refer to them as strings in programming. We have numbers, we have booleans. Booleans basically store something that's either true or false. Let's start typing and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so to define a variable, first you need to decide whether it's a constant or whether you can change it in the future. So I'm just gonna start by writing constant variables. That means you cannot change them in the future and they are just like constant. So to do that, we're gonna use a keyword called const, and then we give the variable a name. In this case, we can call it like I love TypeScript. And then after we give it a name, we can press equal, and then we can give it a value. For example, we can give it a number. We can set it equal to a number, which is equal to 3. We can set it equal to a piece of text. In this case, if you want to set it to a piece of text, you're going to have to open 2 quotes. When you open 2 quotes and you write stuff inside them, this says that this is a string or a piece of text. So you can also have numbers inside of quotes, which means this is not numbers, but this is actually text, and there's numbers inside of the text. So having numbers instead of a text is different than just having numbers. This is the type of this is a number, while this is a text. And then we also have booleans. Booleans is basically true or false. In this case, I do love TypeScript. It's amazing. So I'll just write true. So for the booleans, you can only store either true or false. It only stores 2 states. And if you hover over here, it tells you that this is of type true. Okay, and note this is a constant, so you cannot change it in the future. So let's change the values to something like yes, and this is gonna be a string, so a piece of text. And then we want to console this, so let's console I love TypeScript. And then now when you refer to I love TypeScript, this value is gonna go to this. It's gonna go and look for this variables, and then it's gonna discover that this variable you have stored the text in it. So and it's gonna grab this text. So let's save that and let's go back to the console and see what it logs out. It should log out yes. And as you see, it does log out yes. If I got you confused a little bit, don't worry about that. I'll do more examples so you can have a better understanding of it. So let's do another variable. For this case, let's call it my name. So it's gonna be constant, so const, and then my name, and then equal to, and then we open 2 quotation marks because this is gonna be a string. And then let's write my username, which is ultimate dev, and then let's end it with a semicolon. And as you see, my name or username in the game is gonna be ultimate dev. And now let's console this. Let's print this to the console. So just my name. So when we console .log my name, it's gonna get the information stored in my name, and I've stored a piece of text which says ultimate dev. And then after we save it, we can see that it printed ultimate dev. Now, one thing about constants, from their name, they're constants. You cannot change them in the future. So let me show you how to change a variable. And no, this won't work because we have the const keyword in it. So to change a variable, you write the variable's name basically, and then you use the equal sign, and then you give it the information you want it to be equal to. So I'm gonna set to my name to new user, for example. Okay, and notice how we got an error. We got this error mainly because we used the const keyword. When we use the const keyword to define a variable, this means the variable is going to be constant and we cannot change it in the future. But if you'd like to change it in the future, we have another keyword called let. So if you want to make a variable and you're gonna change what's inside it, or you're unsure if it's gonna be constant or not, you're gonna use the keyword let. And then in this case, since we initialized my name with ultimate dev, and then after that we set my name is equal to a new user, right now when we print my name, it's gonna be a new user because it was ultimate dev but it got changed to new user. So let's say that, let's clear, and then let's start the word one more time, and then you see how it got to new user. So basically we have two keywords that we use with variables. We have const and we have let. We have one more which is called var, but it's old and we don't use it, and basically those are more advanced, and those are like the new stuff that we use. So that's basically all you need to know about variables. And you need to know the three types, which is numbers, strings or text, but we call them strings in programming, and there is booleans. So for example, I love TypeScript, we can set it to true. And then my name, and then we change my name. Let's delete that. Okay, let's practice a little bit more and make a new one. Okay, so we can write H, for example, and we notice how we use the keyword let. That means we can change it in the future. So if I put an age of 5, for example, I can later change it to something else by writing age is equal to okay, so in this case age is gonna be a string. We want it to be a number. Okay, you can do math with numbers, but strings are just text. You cannot do math with them or other stuff like that. So after we set the age to a number, we can later change it to something else like 8, for example. And then right now we can use this variable to do math with it. We can do other stuff with it. And for the console, we can like add multiple variables together. We can use the plus, and then we can write another variable. We can also add a plus, and then we can add a text, or basically a string, and we can do that by writing 2 quotation marks, and then you can write text in here. So let's try that. So let's open two quotation marks, and let's write my name is, and then add a plus, and then my name is, and then it's gonna combine my name, which is gonna be ultimate dev, with this piece of text, and then we can add another plus, and then we can open 2 quotation marks, and then add a dot, and then my age is, and then we can add another plus and write age. Okay, if you got complicated with that, that's fine. Just watch the video again and you'll get it. If we save that and go back, you can see that over here, let's rewrite that again. You can see that it wrote my name is ultimate dev and my age is 8. So this is a basic understanding of how you use variables, how you set them up, and then how you use them. we're gonna use them more in advanced things like doing if statements and calculations in the future. But for now, I just want you to know how to set them up. So to set them up, basically you just use a keyword, you give them a name, you use the equal sign, and then you give them a value. This value can be either text, it can be numbers, or it can be booleans, which is basically it's either true or false. So there are like more types that we're gonna go in the future, but this is basically what I need you to learn in this video. And we've also learned the console.log function or method. This is gonna be very useful for developing more complicated code. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video.